Okay, well, let's welcome Ryan Hanley here to the summit. Thanks a lot, Ryan, for being here.
Absolutely my pleasure, Mario. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's cool. You and I connected on my podcast, and I read your book, and I like what you're doing, so I think you can bring a lot of value here to the people. So, I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for having me back. I mean, our conversation was excellent the first time, and I think we'll have another great one. So I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Okay, cool. So like I said, you're just going to give me 3 tips on how to help my business, and so I'll let you kind of roll with it.
Yeah. So so I'm a content marketer. And for those who didn't listen to the podcast before, I was also an insurance agent for 8 years. So I do have some experience, and I bought 3 houses in the last 7 years. So I have some experience with the business. I'm obviously not a realtor. If I was coming at this from a content marketer's perspective, so the way I looked at this question when you posed it to me was, if a real estate agent was coming to me for content marketing help and I was consulting them, what would be the things that I would really think about? And the first one, and this is going to sound completely obvious, but let me finish before you judge this, and it's going to be visuals, right? Houses are extremely visual, and I know that real estate agents, some take their own pictures, some don't. I think that there is an incredible opportunity for real estate agents to become much better at how they display and showcase the homes. I know some do. I've seen some great examples of it. And those are the ones that, to me, immediately stand out. Even in my local community, when I'm looking for, my wife, she's like neurotic about looking for homes, even though we're never buying another home, at least for the foreseeable future. Like, I can't just keep moving. But she just loves looking at them. So she's always looking, and it is an immediate turnoff when there's not good images. So that's kind of baseline, but that's not even really the tip. Here's the tip. The first thing I would say is that the images should be professionally done. That's probably an obvious one for the ones that go up on the MLS and stuff. But the ones that you might push out through Facebook or an Instagram account or a Pinterest account or any of these other highly visual social networks should be your pictures, and not just you standing in front of the house and snapping a shot and pushing it out and saying that's good enough. No. Pick down into the individual, very specific features of that home. It could be the detailing on a banister. It could be the huge, expansive porch, what it looks like when you're sitting in the lawn chair with like a beer in your hand, if that's the type of house it is, right? Whoever you think that target market is that would be interested in that home, pick the one feature and create a really incredible visual for that feature that draws people in, not just the front of the house, right? The front of the house is great, but that's really your MLS stuff. That's the stuff that you're putting on the listings or whatever. And those are kind of standard. Everybody wants to see the bathrooms, and that makes sense. I'm talking about what makes an emotional connection to that home for the person who's just skipping through. Because I watched the way my wife scans houses, right? It's snap, nope, snap, nope, snap to the next one. But if she catches, a certain detail or a certain aspect or the way a driveway wraps around or something catches her eye, now she's diving deeper into that home and really thinking about it. So tip number one would be, when you think about your visuals, do the professional kind of MLS style. You have to do those, I would say, because I know if there's not the 25 plus on Zillow, I'm not even really going to give that house any attention. God forbid there's no photos or just a picture of the front, right? It's just like you immediately you stop considering it. But in the marketing of the homes on your own, so that could mean a great Instagram account, Pinterest account, using Facebook, start to think of your marketing as more storytelling about the home, and not just about the home itself, but the type of person that you view living there. Is this a young professional's home? Like maybe it's an urban 3-story walk-up brownstone, right? So that you're not going to get a family of 5 most likely living in that spot. That's probably going to be a couple of some sort, probably professional, most likely younger, and they're going to have a certain flavor based on where you are in the country or the world that and you can dial into that and create the experience through your social that really presents that to them, gives them that feel. Maybe you're in Baltimore and you have one of those rooftop decks, right? A really cool shot of, say, the Ravens Stadium from the top deck of you're down in Fed Hill or something, like, that just bam, like you see that and you're like, wow, I've always wanted a house like that. I'm looking in Baltimore and now I've made a connection. So that would be tip number one. Tip number two is again, this is going to be, so there's going to be a pattern here. I think in general, real estate agents should consider thinking about what they do as storytelling, right? Because the real estate industry has been disrupted by Zillow and Trulia and all these others, right? Everyone wants to be a do-it-yourself real estate agent. And then I know some of my friends even say, like, geez, they just come in at the end. Well, that's not really true, because when you get a really good agent, and I had a great one from the house that I just purchased. I had a great one. And she did so much more than that. She really helped you understand what your life would be like living in that home. So the very first home that we looked at, and actually we're minutes away from making an offer on, we were very confused and kind of, we really liked certain aspects of it, but there are other aspects we didn't. And she did something that like blew my mind. She stood in the kitchen of this house and she said, this is how every one of your days is going to start. You're going to go bop. You're going to go bop. And then you got to go all the way here to do this. And then you got to come down here to do this. And when she told the story of how our day was going to start every day, it didn't match our lifestyles and what we wanted out of a home. And I was just like, whack, this isn't the house for us. This just isn't it. Like she literally painted the picture of what a morning would look like for us living in that home. And the light bulb just went off. This isn't the place for us. This isn't what we want as a family out of the home that we live in. And we're kind of odd because we're in our early 30s, yet we want to live in a ranch. I never want to live in a house with stairs ever again. It's like a rule of mine, is that no matter how big a house I ever own, it will never have stairs unless to go down to the basement. That's the one exception that I'll make. So that was dialing into what the tactic is behind this. And on the little MLS thing, you get text, and it's kind of clunky, and I get that, but I've seen so many of those are awful. It's just like, this house has a porch. It has a furnace. There's a roof on top. It may or may not leak, right? Like that is not creating an emotional connection. Because, buying a home, for me at least, all three homes in that aspect have been three of the most emotional decisions that you ever make as a human being, like outside of like, who should I marry and should we have kids and stuff. Like your home is like, this is your life. This is where you come every day, and where you build memories and all these things. And yet I think too often they're marketed as just products, right? It's just, this is another product. This is another house on the market. And even if it's some dump that you don't even want on your listing registry, right? Someone could want that. It could be a great starter home. It could be a great tear down. It could be a great, this is where you stick your family members when they come into town. I mean, there's a million different reasons that every home could potentially be used. And if I was as a content marketing consultant looking at the industry, I think that space where you get to talk about what's going on in the house, that should literally be a story every time. It doesn't have to be 10,000 words. It can be 500 words, but just paint a picture of the type of person. Or if this woman had told, my real estate agent had told that same story to someone else, they would have absolutely loved that experience, right? It wasn't that it was a bad experience. It just wasn't what my wife and I wanted out of our daily routine. And so in that way, if she had told that same story in the listing, and she was not the listing agent on this house, but if she had told that story, that person who was interested in that experience it would have snapped, right? Boom. Wow, that's what I've been looking for. I've been looking for this and this, and it's got the fireplace in the kitchen and all of these things. It would have immediately connected. So in this storytelling vein, better visuals, and visuals that, not just visual, let me back up on better visuals. Professional visuals for your MLS, but visuals that tell a story accompanied by an actual story. And then, the other piece is creating POV experiences, so point of view experiences, which would mean working the house as that person actually living. I saw someone do this one time. It was actually forwarded to me, and what the agent was doing was not one of those like 3D things, but actually snapping these like washing their hands and taking a photo, because it had this really cool, I don't even know what they're called, but you see like them on the home repair shows where they have like maybe a country sink or something. It's like a big, huge sink in the kitchen that's kind of got a lower front, and I don't know, it doesn't matter. But it was a really nice sink. And, and she was like washing her hands in the sink, or no, she was washing dishes in the sink. And it was like, and her comment was, think of how many people you could have over for dinner and all their dishes would still fit in this sink. And I was like, how smart is that, right? If you're a person who loves to have tons of people over, an enormous sink that can hold tons of dishes and they're not all like piled up on your counters and stuff, that's like an incredibly powerful selling point. And it immediately makes you think that every other aspect of the house is potentially geared for parties and having people over and entertaining. And that one visual could take someone who's just flipping through. Wow, I've never seen a picture of someone with their hands holding dishes in a sink before. I'm going to stop and look at this. And then you get the connection of the entertaining thing. And immediately that person goes, we need to go see this house. This is what we've been looking for. We've been looking for a house that's built for entertainers, and we love to entertain people. So I think it would be the visual aspect, the story aspect, and the third tip I would give people is really look at how that house impacts customers from their point of view, immerse people into the experience living in that home. And again, this doesn't have to be Shakespeare, right? I'm not talking about writing these big long epic things, although that probably would be pretty powerful. I think more importantly, it's just taking a moment to think about who actually wants to buy that house and immersing them into the experience in a unique way. So that could be anything. I mean, there's a million things in a home. It could be an expansive basement that could be built out for a man cave or a kid's playroom. And there are a lot of different ways that you could do that. And I'm sure someone with incredible real estate expertise would know better. But those would be my 3 kind of best practice tips that I would give to someone as a content marketer.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I've seen, talking about the storytelling, I saw a video on YouTube recently, and they were marketing a really high-end townhome in downtown Boulder, like a loft, so very high price point, $1 million plus. But they did a video showing the person living in the house and, waking up in the morning, making coffee, looking out at the mountains of Boulder, because, Boulder, we have these great mountains. And I think that fits in exactly with what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
with what you're saying, you can do the visuals through pictures, through text, but also the power of video.
Yeah. I think that the hardest part about, and I'm thinking of this as a consumer, right? So I'm putting my consumer hat on to deliver this advice. I thought that would be the best way, since
that's perfect.
The hardest thing to do, so the last thing you want to do as a consumer of real estate is go to a house that you have absolutely no interest in, right? There's nothing worse than wasting your time, your spouse's time, or in the real estate agent's time, going to a house and you walk in, you're like, I hate this. I would never live here. Right. So that is like the worst case scenario for someone who's shopping. Maybe some people love that. I hate that. So let me put that. There's probably, for all the real estate agents are probably I have tons of clients that love walking to the house. So for me, that's the worst case scenario. That being said, if you can immerse people into the home prior to them having to visit the home, then I think it may potentially free up more time for you as a real estate agent, because people aren't going to listings that they're going to hate. And it also will dial people in more to homes. So it's almost like they're already convinced that they want that place before they walk in, because they've seen, the big, huge I wish I knew the name of this sink, but this big, huge sink with all the dishes, and you're just like, wow, I'd love to entertain. And if it's got that and it makes sense, we're in. So it's that emotional connection, tying that emotion to it. The professional pictures are great. You want to get a feel for it, but there's visuals, storytelling, and video or stuff like that I think can take it to the next level.
Yeah, and I like your tip number one when you're talking about focusing on a specific feature.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that's really good is that every house is going to have something that's really cool about it.
Yep.
It's going to be a big kitchen. It's going to be a big backyard. It's going to be, whatever. And if you could focus in on that feature, just like you're talking about, and like your wife, she's, at night, she's on Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, or she sees something on social media and it talks about like this house has like 2 dishwashers.
Yeah.
And, you could easily entertain a lot of people. So I think that's great advice. And I think we as realtors, we get so caught up in just doing whatever it takes to get the house on the market that we don't take that extra step like you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, in any way. I'm sure that a lot of people are listening to us, or at least some, or maybe no one, since they've actually taken the time to go the extra step to advance their business by being part of your summit here. I think that that little extra step is really the difference, right? And this, a lot of this translates, a lot of this advice I'm giving you translates from what I did when I was an insurance agent, and it just, that little extra is what gets people to stop the scroll, right? Like that's what we're trying to do with our marketing is it's scroll, something different or something that relates to me or something that catches my attention. Stop. I'm going to check this out. And it could be, it's that moment, that little extra attention that they give that separates the house that you're listing from the house that someone else is listing, even if they could be in the same community, right? They could be side by side. But if yours pulls a little bit of emotion out and the husband or the wife or whoever can see their family or the professional who's getting out of the apartment and buying their first place sees their friends and all that going on, that is what gets them to purchase the house because it's all about seeing yourself. I mean, the house that I live in today, I bought because it was like, I can see my family being here. I could just see them. I could see the kids running around. It made complete sense. And there's 7 other houses in this development because it's a new development that we potentially could have gotten into or we could have built in the development. I mean, there were a lot of options, but this particular one, there were a few specific features that just said, bang, that's where I want to be. And that's what stopped the scroll for me.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, this has been really helpful. Really good advice. And this is one of the reasons why I like bringing people outside of the industry to give, like you said, a consumer perspective, a content marketing perspective. So I think this is helpful. So here's my bonus question.
Okay.
So here it is. It's the middle of January 2016. So I want you to look back, 2015, and just share with us, what is something that you're most proud of, an accomplishment, a goal that you achieved, something when you went like, yeah, I did it?
I would say that would have to be publishing my book. That was one of the hardest single things that I've ever done from a professional standpoint. And it took me 13 months to put it all together. And I ended up producing something that is as of high quality as you would get from a traditional publisher. The only thing it doesn't have is the imprint. And the reason I did that was because I wanted it to be 100% me, and I just couldn't be any more prouder of that piece of work. Whether the content actually relates to you or not, it's not a sales pitch for the book. It's the thing, producing the thing and saying, I did this and I'm extremely proud of it was one of the best things that I did professionally. A lot of really great personal things, but professionally, that's what I would say.
Okay. Yeah, and we talked about this in the podcast. I read your book and you stuck with it because you got so many other things going on in your life. You've been busy with your family, you've been busy with work, but you stuck with it and you got your book done. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ryan. This has been really good. I appreciate you being here, a part of the summit. Thank you so much.
Mario, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And thank you everyone who's participating in this. Thank you.